talking about the sun sign with an emphasis on the rising sign. And this is just for giving some clarification. Oftentimes I will hear people talk about like, I'm a Libra with, Virgo rising or whatever. So I'd like to make a little bit of a distinction just, for better understanding. And so we're all on the same page. With the sun sign, we know that that is where the sun was on the day that you were born. The sun was passing through that constellation as it's in Capricorn now. Any baby born during certain times would obviously be a Capricorn. The sign that is on the horizon at the time of birth is what determines the rising sign. How astrologers calculate that is using the time of birth. It's why when people are drafting the full chart, they ask you what time as well as where you were born. I want to include though that if you don't know your time of birth, and there are quite a few people in the world who know what day they were born, but the time was not recorded, depending on where you are, is where we keep accurate records or records down to the minute, but that's not the case for everybody. There are a lot of people that don't know the exact time that they were born, but they can still benefit from rising sign information and still generally find out what their rising sign is. If you draft just a chart, basically, obviously, if one sign is on the horizon, you know what's before and afterwards. And so by process of elimination, I don't want to get confusing. It's possible. So if you don't know, all that to say, if you don't know the time that you're born, you still can find your rising sign, and this information can still be useful for you. So with the rising sign versus the sun sign, when we're talking about the sun sign, we're talking about where the sun was and where the sun is shining light in terms of evolution and life. Generally looking at the evolution of your life, the sun is really indicative of traits that you're going to gain, things that you're going to embody as you grow and change. So you become more like your sun sign as you get older, as you have experiences, as you learn things. Your rising sign tends to be more indicative of your gut reactions. So where you enter, the things how you operate when you feel insecure, how you operate when you may feel threatened, those things are going to be more along the lines of the rising sign. This is why I think a lot of people tend to look at both. My preference is to look at your rising sign. Get familiar with your rising sign over time, visiting, finding out like maybe what your horoscope is in your rising sign consistently for a while, so that you have an idea of what that looks like, and also you can kind of see in yourself how that manifests, what it looks like. There may be areas in life, especially as we've all been growing and changing, there are areas in life that you may leave behind of the rising sign, and you may embody more of your sun, and that's great, right? Only you will know, how progressed you are in your sun sign, or how much you're like your sun sign. Then we have elements of projection, so it all varies for everybody. Looking at the sun sign, the rising sign though, will give you more of an idea of how you're operating on an unconscious level. Sometimes behaviors or things that you may be doing that you're completely unaware of, but maybe patterns that people that are close to you are, it's very obvious. You find things like that with a combination of the rising sign. The moon, Venus, other luminaries definitely factor in. But with your rising sign, it's that gut. It's the thing that, the things that you do that you may not be very proud of, but they may be just unconscious behaviors or things you've not worked out yet. Definitely not from a perspective of anything you should be ashamed of, and definitely not from the perspective of one is positive and one is negative. Life is not like that. It's not that simple. We are a combination, percentages unknown, of both. And again, what determines is you, how you've used your free will, how many things you've learned from, how many lessons you need to repeat, and how many things you've left behind. So in just the rising sign, and I think focusing there a little bit, there's a lot of self-discovery to be had. when I often hear people talking about their horoscopes, or if they're keeping up with their horoscopes, there's this generalized idea of the sun sign, or, he's a Gemini, so he's like this, or he's a Scorpio and he's like that. When in fact, I think that the rising sign has a whole lot more to do with what we see in people. Um, where they're going is more of the sun sign. And so the way that it's being used, I think, can be a little bit confusing, especially if your aim is to use this as a self development tool. Thanks for watching.